In today's video, we are going to talk about what is design thinking, have a quick overview on it, and why is it something that is still relevant nowadays. If you think about the most modern companies, they are actually using some kind of design thinking in their ways of working. And as you can imagine, if the biggest companies in tech, if the most modern companies are actually using design thinking in their ways of working, this is probably something that is interesting for you. And what is design thinking? For me, there is an analogy between what design thinking and Agile are. They are as such philosophies that will help you define solutions in a creative way, especially when you're thinking about projects that are explorative in nature, where you actually don't know what the solution that the users are expecting is. So many times what company has done is that they have developed a technology and then they try to figure out what are the use cases for this technology. How can we actually make it useful for some users? Design thinking, on the other hand, it tries to take a different approach, tries to actually work with the customers to actually define those use cases where the technology can be used. Try to figure out directly with the customers by working with them, iterating with them, what is going to be the best solution that will meet their needs. And in order to achieve this, design thinking is going to promote 5 steps. These steps are not extremely well defined. They are more of a philosophy of how you should work in principle in order to actually achieve a way of working that actually lets you engage very deeply with your customer. Before going on, in my previous video, I was actually talking about product design. This design thinking obviously is very, very tight and is very linked to what product design is, and is very linked also from the point of view of how do you build products that are very engaging for your customers and not just products that are necessarily only usable and useful for them that could solve their problems, but actually building those products that would make the users be very engaged with the product and actually feel that this is something that they actually need and that they are proud of, that they want to promote to others. As I said, there's going to be 5 steps that design thinking is promoting. The first one is going to be empathize. With empathize, what you want to do is that you want to understand your customers. You want to know who your customer persona is. This potentially will require quite a bit of work from your side to actually define those customer personas first. I will link a video here where I was talking about this topic. Customer personas are going to help you a lot when you try to understand what is the actual profile of the user that you are going to provide these solutions to. And it's not just from the point of view of what the user needs in order to solve their problems, but it's also how the user sees the world. What are the things that are important for them? So how can you actually create a closer relationship with those users and understand more their actual motivations and not just the solutions that they need? This will help you bring in and building those products that are going to create a very deep engagement from the users. So remember, don't just focus on the problems that you want to solve for these user personas, but also what are the motivations that these user personas have. The second one is going to be define. So here we want to actually understand what are the problems that we are going to be solving for the user personas that we have described. We want to make sure that we want to tackle the problem for a specific customer persona group. We don't want to find or try to figure out the problem that all the customer personas have. So we want to be able to narrow down a common problem and who are the customer personas that this problem is affecting to. Potentially, we can define several problems and the different personas that they are affecting them. And we might come with different solutions for those problems. The third step is going to be ideate. In the ideate phase, this is more like a brainstorming phase, where you actually work with your product team, product designers, and actually sit down and see how are we going to actually solve this problem for the users? How can we come up with those solutions? Sometimes this might include also different stakeholders like different sales partners or potential as well some end users or potential end users for your products. how can you figure out what is the best solutions that you could bring to the users? And it's very important that when you define the solutions, we are making sure that for each solution, we make sure that we have had already the problem defined and what are the customer personas that are being affected by this problem and solution. It might be that within the same product, we are actually tackling several problem solution pairs. So this is something that we will have to take into account, and potentially this is going to have different designs for the end users. Just remember, we want to make it very easy for the end user to actually start using our product. The fourth step is going to be prototype. During this step, what we are going to do is actually create some kind of prototype. It can be a technical prototype, it can be a mock-up in the very beginning, and sometimes it can be just some kind of wireframe. The idea is that we actually create this prototype, whatever the format is, that would show either by letting the users engage with it or understand how the workflow is or how this product is going to look like and how they would work with it to understand what we are trying to achieve. And the fifth step is going to be test. Obviously, we have created the prototypes or the mockups. Now we want to hand this over to the end users and hear them, understand what they feel like, be with them, see what they are, their reactions. This can be by letting them using a prototype or also presenting the mockups and seeing the reaction that they are having. So do they actually like what they are seeing? Are they just indifferent or they just bluntly not like it at all? It is very important that we understand what are the feelings that the users are having towards the product or the potential product that we are building. This is going to show us how people are going to feel about our product, and is this actually an engaging product for them? So it's very important to understand the reactions that the users are having. So direct interviews with specific customers is a very key and important thing at this phase. And probably you have noticed this is an iterative process. So as you can imagine, once you have done all the 5 steps, once you are in the testing part, you obviously are going to have some kind of reaction from the user. If it's good, most likely you are in the correct path. If it's something that it keeps them indifferent or they don't like it, then you probably have to change something. Or anyways, even if it's good for them, but they might have some feedback on things that they would like to see change. So how can you actually go through the feedback loop and then start again from zero? Empathize with the customer, empathize with that problem that they're seeing in that prototype that you have brought them. And how can you then continue over the process and iterate as many times as you need until you come up with the actual solution that is going to make your customers happy. Happy customers are going to be the customers that find value in your products. Potentially, the customers actually going to be willing to invest and potentially pay for the products that you're building, and hence generate the revenue and business traction for your own company. So design thinking is a modern way of working when you want to design products and actually make sure that you are engaging with your users, that you're understanding their problems, and that you are actually making solutions that are going to be enjoyable and experiences that they will like to have with your products. When comparing it to other processes, you can imagine that these processes are not fighting against each other. When you think about Agile, especially if you think about the heart of Agile, in the heart of Agile, the process goes collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. When you think about these 4 bullet points, actually they are not that different from what a design thinking is promoting. So as mindsets and as philosophies, they are not actually fighting with each other. So these are actually quite complementary in their approach of empathizing, of actually engaging with your customers, reflecting on what you have done. Then on delivering the solutions to specific problems, on improving the ways of working and actually collaborating not just internally but also with your customers. So there is a lot of parallels, and potentially it doesn't look like the same cycle, but there is a lot of linking between the different steps on both processes. In my opinion, design thinking and product design are extremely important, especially nowadays, and they have been for a while. But in the past, user experience has been something that many companies had not put a focus on. And this is still very true in B2B businesses. When you think about B2C, that has moved much faster when it comes to the user experience. In the end, the decision maker is typically the user. In B2B situations, the decision maker might not be the end user. And in some cases, this has made some companies overlook the actual user experience because the decision maker is not the one that is going to actually have to use the product. If they are sold out that this product is actually solving the problem that they have, they might go and make the purchase decision without contacting with anybody else and not necessarily paying attention to who are going to be the end users, or maybe paying attention, but sometimes the decision might come from the actual offerings that they are getting from different service providers. But in the end, if you think about it, when you take approaches like Heart of Agile or design thinking, you are actually looking on how to make sure that you are actually making the best possible solution for your users by bringing in then the most value. And this way you want to make the biggest impact for your company. From that point of view, then investing in Agile, investing in design thinking, investing in product design is very key and critical, because the better the experience that your users have, the better that your tools and your products are actually solving their problems, the most likely those users are going to end up choosing your tools or your products. And this applies both in B2C cases, but also in B2B. Remember, paying attention to your product design is going to be key. How much do you pay attention to product design? Do you follow some of these mindsets or philosophies like design thinking is? Please comment below and let me know. If you like this kind of content, I create this type of videos every week where I talk about products, about how to build products and businesses around products, how to make sure that you build successful products, that you make sure that you understand your customers when you are building your product. So remember to like and subscribe if you like this type of videos. I will see you in the next video, and as always, remember to stay safe.